This is the session where our knowledge capital is going to be expanded into neuroscience, into medical telemetry, into flipping education, and into how fast cars can shape innovations that make our airports and hospitals more efficient. And I'd like to invite our next speaker, who is behind the most successful team in Formula One history. He's the chairman of the McLaren Group and also McLaren Automotive. We're going to show just a short film about the next speaker, but please come on stage, Ron Dennis. So Ron Dennis, for you, innovation isn't just about winning on the racetrack. It's about winning in the race to create not just new products, but new ways to think and new ways to work. So explain a little about your thinking and how you develop R&D that works both for the Formula One pit and then goes into the wider world, into healthcare.
Yeah, it's a bit of a leap for people, but I think it's better to use a sort of an analogy first to try and understand why Formula One, why is it given birth to such a diverse range of technologies. I think, and possibly some of the more motorsport-oriented members of the audience would be saying, well, this is all very well, but we're not succeeding at the moment, having an appalling season. I think the motor racing is unique in the sense that an average lap of most circuits roughly falls into about 100 seconds. And if you're a second off the pace, you are history. I mean, you're just nowhere, as is the case at the moment. Of course, second is really 1%. You know, there's not many businesses that succeed or fail functioning in a 1% window. I liken it really to when you're trying to understand what Formula 1's all about. It's this split second at which a golf club hits a golf ball. At that moment, the destiny of where that's going to arrive and finish is determined by such a precise impact, and yet it can be off the fairway or it can be on the fairway or something in between. And it's that moment of time that we try to capture in a data sense, and we try and take the data and say and predict everything that's likely to happen. So if you look at, for example, a Formula 1 car, the car is covered in sensors, over 100 sensors. And we are harvesting, in the course of a Grand Prix, something like 6.5 billion data points. So to try and give some sort of visualization of that, 2 Grand Prix cars, 13 billion data points. And it's coming at you in real time. It's roughly the world's population times 2. We have recently, and we're talking about energy efficiency, we're talking about, and I think Richard touched on, in fact, I should say, I'm so happy my grandmother's necklace had such an impact on Richard's career. She always wondered where it went. Anyway, it was obviously put to good use. So, you know, you look at that all of that data, and you want to use it, and you want to use it fast, that impact point. And recently, we have lots of technology partners, one of which is SAP, and we've been working with them on a new software. Mm-hmm. It's called HANA. And HANA is, it is, you know, I just want to pause. There's 2 words that I'll bring into this conversation. One is HANA, and one is graphene. And you know, there's that magic moment in the movie The Graduate, where Dustin Hoffman's sat on the bottom of the pool. He comes up and he's in despair, and he doesn't really like what's going on. His uncle whispers in his ear, "Plastics," sort of meaning the word of the future. You know, this is where you should go and invest your life. I think the 2 words that come into my mind are graphene, which is just going to sail past carbon fibre, and HANA, which is everything that you could wish software to be. If you could imagine, again, the world's population times 2, and you ask them a question, all at the same time, and you want that answer very quick. HANA gives you the software that drives this Q&A, as it were. HANA delivers the answer to the question in 100 milliseconds. That is processing power that is so powerful that it can predict the future. How can it predict the future? Well, it predicts the future by taking the past, and this is when you go back now to the racing car. You've got all this data coming in real time. Most people think, for example, our race team is controlled from the venue. It's not. The race team, everything that happens, strategy, etc., is controlled from our headquarters. The data streams back. The whole NASA-like tiered room in which is air-conditioned, lots and lots of screens. All this data is coming in real time, and our supercomputers generate and simulate something like 3,000 races a second. So we are predicting, based on all the data, what's going to happen to determine our strategy. And when you go to, and you look at HANA, HANA will make that 300,000 Grand Prix per second.
You develop systems for collecting the data, for sending them around the world, for visualizing them. How much are you spending on R&D?
Well, this is very interesting. When we started to realize the power of data, and we started to introduce more and more sophistication into simulation, this is another important thing, over a 15-year period, and we started over 17 years ago to start really getting into simulation and spending. I mean, I've spent somewhere between 100 and 200 million in developing simulation tools. And what happens in an R&D sense is, years ago, everything was trial and error. You made a component, you went and put it on the car, the driver would drive the car, he'd say good or bad. Well, first of all, there are very few eureka moments in motor racing that you can put something on and the driver can feel it. Now it's huge quantities of components. In season, we are designing, manufacturing, and bringing to market, as it were, a new component every 12.5 minutes. So wow. It's a massive, fast development. And it's always a collection of components that make a performance difference. So we're trying always to so simulation reversed R&D. What do I mean? We would have 10% productivity out of our R&D through trial and error. We now have 90% productivity. Virtually, we make nothing that doesn't work. Now, you could argue that, you know, competitiveness, but you've got to be looking at the rarefied atmosphere that we're working in, that 1%. So when you get that, let's say, slice on the golf ball, which is what we've had this year, it's hard to recover. And you just have to come to terms with the fact that you're going to develop out of it and you can't make the same mistake. Yeah.
So you're spending hundreds of millions of pounds developing technology and software for one purpose, which is winning the race. How do you create the culture whereby people inside McLaren say, actually, this is something we should partner with a medical company on. This is something we should partner on airports to try and make their taxiways more efficient. Yeah. How do you create that mindset?
How did that happen? It's pretty simple, really. You know, we have two customers in a Grand Prix organisation. They're called drivers. They're highly paid. They sometimes forget they're the highest paid employees of the company, and they become quite prima donnas. Not all of them, but some of them. But nevertheless, the simple fact is that, you know, that we spend, in round figures, about £185 million a year going motor racing. If you take 19 Grand Prix, double it by the fact there's two cars, divide that into that total, gives you a pretty horrendous number per car per race. And suddenly you're thinking, well, we've got all this R&D and we've got all this knowledge, all these spin-off technologies, we need to monetize them. And that's how I started Applied Technologies, to monetize the R&D. And really the power that came out of that decision, and I don't think any decision is taken by any one individual, but the power that came out of the decision was you suddenly realised just how useful some of the data processing and simulation tools are that we developed. And of course, there are vehicles, and P1, for example, is full of technology, it's a technology platform, and that's radically contrasted by collecting data from a child. Of course, children can't communicate when they're very young. And so covering them in sensors, non-invasive sensing technology, and then monitoring them with sample rates that are so fast, far beyond the capabilities of a nurse measuring those things, gives you the ability to then be very predictive about where things are going. And of course, you build up data and you say, this trend is not looking good, we have to do something about it before it becomes an issue, whether it's a child or whether it's some other technology.
I just want finally to ask you about the P1, which is your hybrid supercar. It's £870,000.
Rather inexpensive, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I imagine it will sell out because you don't make very many cars.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all about supply and demand. If you go high volume, you can reduce the price. This sort of technology is only possible to incorporate into a unique product, and so we're only making 375 of these.
Let me just ask you then, what's your mission in making these cars? Is it to give a kick to the ultra-wealthy, or do you think there is some change in our attitudes, our understanding of what a supercar is, but creating a hybrid version to make us consume less energy? What is the purpose?
Well, it's all of those things, but I think more. First of all, it gives us the ability to demonstrate our technology. We compete in Grand Prix racing. Toyota, who I've got a huge respect for, came in over an 8-year period. They spent €3 billion and never won a Grand Prix. So clearly, Grand Prix racing is very challenging, and it's not about money. But there is a need to build a brand. You know, our competition is the Ferraris, Porsches, etc. And we wanted to show the world that we, as small as we are, that we have the technology. So we looked at you know, things like CO2. We said, right, we're going to make a supercar that's got the lowest CO2 in the world, 200 grams. How can you have a 1,000 horsepower supercar which is 200 grams of CO2? And the answer is by very clever, innovative use of a hybrid system. And our hybrid system, yes, it gives you 25 kilometres full electric in excess of 100 miles an hour, but it's the real ingenuity of it, the real innovation of the system, is that to get high levels of efficiency, you have to use a small capacity turbocharged engine. That engine, therefore, has all the inherent problems of turbocharging, turbo lag, the power drop-off that comes when the driver closes the throttle, the energy source, i.e. the exhaust gases, drop off. So we use effectively 170 odd horsepower, electric horsepower, to absolutely fill the torque curve. So the torque of the engine is completely linear, and that's made possible by introducing, with very sophisticated control systems, the energy from the electric motor to create a complete linear torque curve. Now, from a driving experience, it just gives you a sort of the ability to drive the car and experience, you know, the optimum performance, but at very high levels of efficiency. And Richard touched on carbon fibre. We pioneered carbon fibre in 1980. I can remember the frustrations of, you know, a company at the time wasn't even McLaren, less than 20 people. And we said, we're going to use carbon fibre, and I mean to shop around the world. And when we built the first Formula One car, it was the biggest composite structure, load-bearing composite structure in the world. Now every racing car is carbon fibre, and we are the biggest producers of production cars out of carbon fibre. But as I said, graphene is the future.
There's a couple of hundred people here who are going to cost you now to try and get a test drive. Do go and look in the exhibition just outside, but please, thank you, Ron Dennis.
Thank you.